importance of Ethiopia and the other countries in the Horn to the stability of the region and as a strategic interest of the United States. And furthermore, he then hosted just recently the African Leaders Summit in December in Washington, which is another manifestation of the focus of the Biden administration on improving and strengthening our relationships with the continent. When it comes to Ethiopia, it is something that I spent almost all of my time as the Special Envoy for the Horn.
ሰላም ጤና ይስጥልኝ ውድ የ ዄ-ኢትዮጵያ ቤተሰቦቻችን እንደምን ቆያችሁን? የአሜሪካ የአፍሪካ ቀንድ ልዩ ልዑክ ማይክ ሐመር ከኢትዮጵያ ዲያስፖራ ተወካዮች ጋር ሊወያዩ እንደነበር ከዚህ በፊት መዘገባችን ይታወሳል። በዛሬው ፕሮግራማችንም ይዘንላችሁ የመጣ ነው የአሜሪካ የአፍሪካ ቀንድ ልዩ ልዑክ ማይክ ሐመር በሎስ አንጀለስ ከሚገኙ የኢትዮ አሜሪካ ማህበረሰብ አባላት ጋር የነበራቸውን ቆይታ ነው። አብራችሁን ቆዩ።
Ambassador Hammer is a career member of the Senior Foreign Service class of Minister of Consuls. He's over 3 decades of service, includes serving as acting Senior Vice President of the National Defense University and Deputy Commander of the NDU's Eisenhower School. He, as U.S. Ambassador to Chile from 2014 to 2016 as well. Prior to his appointment in Chile, Ambassador Hammer served as Assistant Secretary of State for Public Affairs from March 2012 to August of 2023. Ambassador Hammer's overseas postings include Bolivia, Norway, Iceland, and Denmark. His other State Department assignments include the Operations Center and serving as Special Assistant to the Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs. Ambassador Hammer has received several awards, including the Navy's Distinguished Public Service Award, the State Department's Distinguished Honor Award, the Department's Edward R. Murrow Award for their excellence in public diplomacy, and several Superior Honor Awards. Ambassador Hammer grew up in Latin America, living in Honduras, El Salvador, Colombia, Venezuela, and Brazil. He is fluent in Spanish and speaks French and Icelandic, and hopefully he will be fluent in Amharic pretty soon. Ambassador Hammer and his wife, Margaret, have 3 children. And we hope that this will be a very respectful and engaging conversation with Ambassador Hammer. Ambassador Hammer, thank you for coming.
No, I can walk around. Yeah. Thank you, Ted. And that was meant to be short. It just says that I'm old. 30-some years in the diplomatic service of the United States, and I want to recognize my colleague Nora, who helped arrange this and was our first and very bestest coordinator of diaspora outreach to the Ethiopian community. And it is my great pleasure to be here in Little Ethiopia in LA. My daughter just graduated from USC, so I suspect you'll be seeing a lot more of me in LA. You'll get sick of me and probably see me eating in this row. I won't say necessarily this restaurant, we can't be biased, but I'm sure they're all very, very good. So let me just say a couple introductory remarks, but I really am here to listen to you. And thank you so much for coming this afternoon. I know everybody's got busy schedules and things to do, but for us in the U.S. government, it is very important to hear from different diaspora communities. And I know it has helped inform me as I started this job last June. And we have seen in just in the last 10 months what possibilities there are in terms of trying to promote peace in Ethiopia. What I will say is on behalf of the Biden administration, President Biden reached out to the African Union at the beginning of his tenure in February of 2021 to an African Union summit and projected and made clear through a video message that the United States wanted to be a partner for our friends and allies on the continent, and specifically be supportive of African solutions for African problems. And he has followed through. I mean, we have the position of the Special Envoy for the Horn of Africa in recognition of the importance of Ethiopia and the other countries in the Horn to the stability of the region and as a strategic interest of the United States. And furthermore, he then hosted just recently the African Leaders Summit in December in Washington, which is another manifestation of the focus of the Biden administration on improving and strengthening our relationships with the continent. When it comes to Ethiopia, it is something that I spent almost all of my time as the Special Envoy for the Horn in trying to see what we can do to promote, again, peaceful solutions to some of the conflicts that are obviously troubling your great country of origin. As Americans, you all contribute to our political system, and you have perhaps abilities to contribute back in Ethiopia. And what I will just say is that I hope that Ethiopians, and I've been meeting with the different communities, but I hope that more and more you'll be able to come together and find what you have in common and find what you can do together for a better Ethiopia that can, again, serve the Ethiopian people and can have the kind of relationship with the United States that we all want to see, to have a strategic partnership. But in order for that to happen, not only do we need to promote peace, but we need to promote accountability for the horrific human rights violations and atrocities that are committed. We need transitional justice, and we need to just work towards an effort that we can actually have the kind of relationship that benefits both countries. I'm not here to lecture you. I'm here really, again, to emphasize to listen. And so for the time that we have until my parking meter expires, because I here in LA, the minute it expires, there's somebody there to put a ticket on your car. So we'll run out the door when that happens. But in any case, this is the beginning of a conversation with you, although perhaps some of you have participated in some of our virtual meetings that Nora organizes through our time in Washington, and even London when I've been in Ethiopia, back with different communities back in the United States. So again, let me just turn it back over to Ted, and however you want to do it in terms of questions or comments, I'm here to listen.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. I do want to call out Nora Dempsey, who's a special assistant for Ambassador Hammer, and thank her for continued engagement. With the Amhara community. This is someone I regularly email, phone calls. Sometimes she calls me on weekends when there are issues happening, and it says something about our community that we can have the special envoy from the Horn of Africa here to listen to us. It says something strong about our community when there is a special assistant that is constantly asking us, bugging us about what is our issue, what is our concern, what can be done. It shows the strength of our community. And so please, one of the things I want to say, please continue to be engaged in this democratic process. Continue to be engaged with your members of Congress. Continue to get engaged with the State Department. That's part of our role, that's part of our obligations here. So I'll stop with that said. So thank you, Nora. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to question and answers. I'm into questions because that's what Ambassador Hammer wants to do is hear from you. There are some guidelines for the questions. First, please state your full name, and then also location, because some of you might have come from outside of the Los Angeles area. If you have any organizational affiliation, please let us know your organizational affiliation. That's really something very important. And then also, please write your questions. Because we want you to ask your questions if you can under 1 minute. We have a full house. We want to give as many people an opportunity to ask their questions, right? So please keep it under 1 minute if you can, so it's best to write it. And then try not to repeat the question. If your question has already been asked by a previous person, no need to repeat, right? So that being said, there were several people that actually had sent their questions in advance. They knew that there were going to be questions, so I want to respect these people who had already sent their questions in advance. I just got this text. I'll call your name if you're here. Please go to the mic. I don't know without it.
The mic.
Is there a mic? Okay. If you're here, there's a person with a mic, and that person will give you the microphone. I'll call your name 2 times, maybe 3 times. If you don't step up to the mic, that means I'm going to go to the next person. Okay? Hermela Bekele, and I apologize if I mispronounced your name. If Hermela Bekele is here. Okay, all right, great.
My name is Hermela Bekele, and I live in Los Angeles. Ambassador Hammer, I want to thank you for taking the time to engage with our community, and I appreciate that. Louder? am appreciated for the opportunity to pose a question. At this very moment, the Amara region and the Amara people are under attack and under siege by the Abiy administration and his military. The Amara region is under martial law. There have been civilians killed by the military. Heavy military weapons are being used in cities. Almost every Amara journalist has been arrested under false terrorism charges. Politicians, activists, and student leaders representing the Amara student associations have been arrested. The internet in the Amara region is blacked out as well. Thankfully, the Committee to Protect Journalists Amnesty International and the Lamkit Institute have condemned the Abiy administration and demanded the release of Amara journalists. I am not able to speak with my family, and I'm unable to confirm whether they are safe or not. I was extremely disappointed by Secretary Wilkins' latest statement, ignoring the ongoing atrocities against Amaras. On behalf of my family and my community, I feel the State Department does not treat human lives equally in Ethiopia. Why has the State Department been silent and not condemned the latest campaign against Amaras by the Abiy administration? And why has the State Department not held accountable Abiy Ahmed, Semelish Abdisa, and TPLF leaders who are not responsible for these crimes against humanity?
Thank you very much. Yeah, no. Thank you. And I noticed that somebody is videotaping. I hope everybody is fine with that. I'm certainly fine with it, but I just want to make sure that that's okay. We were in another meeting where that wasn't so okay. So just to make the point. I appreciate your concerns, and let me assure you, when I started this job last June, whatever community I met with from Ethiopia always felt that the State Department didn't do enough for their community. And let me assure you, I'm the special envoy to the Horn of Africa, focused on Ethiopia, and we have an embassy in Ethiopia led by Tracy Jacobson. Now we have a nominee to be the next ambassador who's having his hearing tomorrow, Irvin Masinga. And we're interested in the welfare and well-being of all Ethiopians, not by ethnicity, but by rather as humans who are desiring to have an opportunity to live in peace, an opportunity to have an education, an opportunity to live healthy lives. And that is the focus of U.S. policy. For the first 8 months, more or less, of my tenure, of course, we were trying to bring an end to the conflict in northern Ethiopia. And we were able to achieve, through the leadership of the African Union and the effort that was done in Pretoria, the cessation of hostilities agreement, which I'm sure you have perspectives on. But the point was to stop the fighting, to end the violence, and to bring that war to an end. That's a progress that is significant and that is continuing. And we understand the concerns of the Amhara community, Oromo community, other communities, in terms of the issues that they're facing. And we will speak out when we find it necessary on issues that relate to human rights and atrocities. And we have. Again, you may not always be in full agreement with our statements out of the State Department, but we issued an atrocities determination back in March, which made very clear that all parties to the conflict in northern Ethiopia were responsible for war crimes, and some parties were responsible for crimes against humanity. Part of the issue that we struggle with is information. Is it possible to get the investigations that are necessary into the different transgressions that have occurred? And we as the United States support having international human rights monitors go into Ethiopia and do that kind of investigation and research. And ultimately, it's for the Ethiopian people to decide in terms of the accountability that needs to happen in transitional justice. But in Secretary Blinken's visit, which I was a part of in March 15th to Addis, we discussed these issues directly with Prime Minister Abiy and several members of his cabinet, as well as with human rights activists, NGOs, and humanitarian organizations. And we will continue to have a foreign policy that reflects our values, that promotes improvements in human rights, and holds those violators of human rights accountable. But again, I appreciate the concerns that you're raising, and it's the reason I'm here today in Little Ethiopia, speaking to the Amhara community. I met with members of other communities while I was here in LA, of the Oromo, the Somali region, and Tigrayans, and will continue to do that. And I hope that as you're worried about the situation in your communities, that you also have an opportunity to work with them, because they share many of the same concerns about what is happening in Ethiopia and what is necessary to move that country forward. So again, thank you very much for your perspective.
Okay, housekeeping issue, if everybody can hear me, please put your phones on silent, so that it doesn't disturb the discussion. Please put your phones on silent. The next person that's supposed to be asking a question is Abina Vegas. Abina.
Yes.
Thank you for coming over. It really does mean a lot. We've been in this struggle for a long time, and to have someone come over and engage with us at this time, especially in Ethiopia, it's very critical. You got it? Yeah. All right. All right. Anyways, to follow up on the question about the Victoria issue that we were discussing, I have to rephrase some of the questions because the discussion has been ongoing. The perpetrators, we are all aware that Ethiopia started it, but as you know, in the last few months, there's been no accountability. Signed with Abiy, and we just want to wash it over. So, in the sense of accountability, I know you discussed it, but it's been for the last year or so. It's been the discussion. My understanding, one-sided. In other words, it's towards the Tigrayan problem. But you have to be aware, and I'm sure you are, that atrocities have been committed both in Afar and the Amhara regions. So hopefully, when that accountability really does come up, as you're saying, as you're looking into it, those are as well addressed. So if you can share with us, if anything, regarding these issues, a little bit more detail, we would appreciate it. Second, the two questions attached to this, and I have to rephrase it here. One is, in the Pretoria Agreement, if you can share with us anything that has why the Amhara and the Afar were not engaged, as they were part of the conflict of war. So the agreement has always been between Tigray and the Ethiopian state, but the two have not been part of that agreement. So if you could share with us any knowledge you have why that was the case. And then lastly, now since the US says now, I'm going to have to read it out a little bit.
I think that one question per person, so thank you, so
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. And we should have said this at the top. As much as I want to hear your questions, I also would very much appreciate your perspectives on what are possible solutions. Here's an opportunity for you to share with somebody in the U.S. government what you think might be the best way forward, because that's what we're really truly interested in, is finding solutions, peaceful solutions to some of these very difficult issues that Ethiopia is facing at the moment. I'll make two comments in reply to the question. In terms of human rights violations, the United States has supported independent international investigations into human rights violations in all of northern Ethiopia, Amhara, Tigray, and Afar. We don't distinguish between any of the regions. We just want there to be investigations that are credible, that will surface the facts of what's transpired, with a hope that that will lead to the accountability that the people in the regions want to see. Secondly, in terms of Pretoria, I just met with another group and we were discussing this very issue. Amhara were represented by the federal government's delegation. Now, the issue there, and I know you're reacting to it. Yeah, you're reacting to it. Again, the United States doesn't choose the leadership in Ethiopia. Ethiopians do. And that agreement was done between the federal government and the TPLF, the two parties that were at war. I understand it involved, of course, Amhara Special Forces, and I know it involved Afar. The point was that in the Pretoria Agreement, the focus was on ending the fighting, and that has happened. The follow-on agreement, I'm sure you're all familiar with, that the military commanders reached in Nairobi a few days, a week later, in which it was agreed upon that there would be Tigrayan disarmament that would happen concurrently with the withdrawal of foreign forces, that means Eritrea, and non-ENDF forces. And that the future status of the disputed areas will be determined consistent with the Ethiopian constitution and through political dialogue. That's for Ethiopians to decide. It's not for the United States to decide. So the point being that we're looking to find peaceful resolution to some of these very difficult issues, and the United States is prepared to continue to support the African Union, Ethiopia, and the Ethiopian people as they look forward to implementing the Cessation of Hostilities Agreement and to address some of these issues that are necessary for the country to move forward. I will also say, and I want to thank you all as Americans who have, through your taxes, supported a very generous budget of contributions to Ethiopia through the humanitarian assistance that USAID, U.S. Agency for International Development, has been providing, which is over $1.3 billion the last 3 years, which is considerable, which is more than any other country on earth. And so we're doing our part to try to help alleviate some of the suffering that Ethiopians have been experiencing, both through man-made conflict, and I must say, you can say it's man-made because the leadership of those who are going to war is male. I do hope that we'll see more women's empowerment, more women participation in the political process, more women involved, because I think that will only enhance our chances for peace, but also through the natural circumstances of drought, which is also deeply affecting Ethiopia and Somalia and parts of Kenya. And that's why the Biden administration has put so much premium on fighting climate change and coming up with ways to mitigate against the effects of climate change. But again, thank you for your contributions through your taxes that is enabling us as the United States to save many, many lives. Oftentimes it's not recognized what the United States does, but I'm very proud to serve our country and to be able to go forward and to try to provide, again, some relief, not complete, to those in need.
Thank you. Ms. Anogu?
Yeah, so there's a housekeeping issue for every person that asks a question. Please give your name, where you're coming from, and if you're affiliated with any organization.
My name is Annabelle President Ademen Tom Nagash. Each of the names of our paternal grandfathers who were born and buried in what rights. My family tree goes.
Okay, can you start? I think we could hear you. Can you can you start?
Okay. My name is Annabelle President Ademen Nagash. Each of one of the names our paternal grandfathers who were born and buried in Volcaites. My family tree goes back hundreds of years. And all those years, Volcaites was always administrated by Gondar until TPLF firstly annexed our land and people into right region. I and Amara people have experienced genocide, massacre, ethnic cleansing, rape, and disbursements. And disappearing of male family members by TPLF. Ambassador Thompson, when I heard our own Secretary of State demand Amara force legal on Kites and Raya, I was shaken and beyond emotional. Without knowing the people of the history, the State Department took sides and tried to draw the borders of Ethiopia. In addition, Amaras were were excluded from the Pretoria negotiation. Imagine how our people felt seeing the TPLF negotiating for Volcaites and Raya. For the first time, our people can clearly express themselves in their language and express their identity. I and all the Amaras will fight and advocate for Volcaites, and Raya to remain under Amara administration. And I hope the state can engage with our community to understand our history and our perspectives. My question is, will you and your State Department honor the choice of Amara to vote Kites and Raya to remain under Amara administration?
Yeah. Let me just answer the question this way. It is not for the State Department to decide, or for the United States to decide and determine the future of Volcaic Western Tigray, Raya. That is for the Ethiopian people to decide. That is for the Ethiopian people to decide. That is an Ethiopian question. The Pretoria Agreement provides a framework for that issue to be addressed, which is quite clear, to do it within the framework of the Ethiopian Constitution and to do it through political dialogue, not through violence. And that's what the United States is supporting. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Hi, can you hear me? My name is Saba Alao Abu Haishaf Guru I was born in Armachuo and I currently reside in Los Angeles, California. I'm a member of the tech community. I've worked for various Fortune 500 companies, including Amgen and Google, and I'm also a member of various technology organizations. My question for you is deeply personal. I have many friends and family members who continue to reside in Armachuo and in Gwanda, in various areas within those regions, and have actively been displaced by the existing Abiy administration and various unfortunate outcomes. I have family members who I've attempted to communicate with on a regular basis and find that to be challenging as well. You stated that the US administration is not going to make any decision for Ethiopia. Ethiopians will make the decisions for themselves, which I appreciate. However, the actions and statements of Secretary Belkin and your State Department continue to perpetuate the unfortunate reality that continues to exist, including the exclusion of Amaras in the discussion about ceasefires. Instead, the discussion is between TPLF and the Abiy administration. That continues to perpetuate the atrocities that I and my family members face. Delegations of Amaras who are willing and open to peace and interested in negotiating and being a part of the State Department's ongoing conversations continue to be excluded actively. Therefore, as a prideful people, as a people who understand our history, and as a people who know the names of our fathers going back hundreds of years, it's difficult for us to respect, quote unquote, negotiations in which we are actively excluded while members of our family members are murdered. So how can the Amara people and the Amara region respect ceasefires in which they're actively excluded and their personal interests ignored while our history is erased actively by the administration and the State Department's continued silence on that front?
Thank you very much, and I appreciate the passion and the hurt that you feel. Let me just say that through our embassy in Addis and myself, when I've had opportunities, we have had discussions with Amhara political leadership, and we are aware of the concerns of the Amhara community, much like we hear and listen to the concerns of the Oromo, the Tigrayans, Somali, and others. These are really challenging times for Ethiopians. I understand that. We have a policy. Our policy is to support a sovereign Ethiopia, its territorial integrity, and to work to see how we might advance peaceful resolutions to some of these conflicts. And we do speak out about human rights violations and atrocities. The findings of the atrocities determination in March were quite exceptional to have happened. And we don't do this except in extraordinary circumstances. I can appreciate that you don't necessarily always agree with the US government, the State Department, but that's why we're here. We're here to listen, to get your perspectives. We try to get it right. We try to be true to our core values of democracy and promoting freedom, and to enable, again, our relationships with other countries to work, understanding that we need to also hold people accountable when there are human rights violations that occur. We don't have all the solutions, and the United States isn't in a position to impose solutions. As I said, we're looking to partner with other countries and other governments and the peoples of those countries to try to make things better. But again, if you have ideas and solutions for the way forward, I'm very keen to hear those as well. When I've traveled to Ethiopia, I've heard from many who are interested in national dialogue that is inclusive, that is credible. Maybe that's part of the solution. Again, these are decisions ultimately that need to be made by Ethiopians. And the United States will stand by efforts which we think can advance the cause of peace and can bring some greater stability and calm to Ethiopia.
Who's next? The next question is supposed to be asked by Mr. Asafa Daras.
My name is Asafa Daras. I'm the executive director of Isaac Foundation, serving the Ethiopian community in the Greater Los Angeles for the last 4 years. And I reside in the Cyprus. And I've been a member of the Amhara Association in California. Ambassador, thank you for coming. We do really appreciate you being here today. No? Okay. Ambassador Han, thank you for coming. We do really appreciate you being here today to listen to what we have to say to you. And hopefully you will take some thoughts out of this and use them in your future discussion with the government of Ethiopia. Having said that, I want to appreciate the Amhara Association in the Cyprus. I want to appreciate the Amhara Association and AAA for organizing this event. And we greatly appreciate, this is what we expect from the Amhara Association. Thank you. Ambassador, the root of Ethiopia's problem is ethnic apartheid system divides Ethiopia along ethnic lines. This has led them to marginalize the Ethiopians who live outside the so-called homeland. The most impacted group of Amhara, because they live across Ethiopia, all over the Ethiopian states. Essentially, millions of Amharas who live outside of Amhara region have been stateless with no political representation, and no way to defend themselves from immense attack. If the State Department truly wants democracy, if the State Department truly wants to settle this issue, why the State Department do not call what is big as a massacre in Ethiopia as an apartheid system that is settled in Ethiopia as an apartheid? The State Department has never mentioned that.
So, you understand the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll say that just to share that I was in Addis, I was just checking the date, on April 23rd, when Prime Minister Abiy had an event to look at the progress that's been made in terms of the cessation of hostilities agreement, which I know that there are many in this room who are uncomfortable with or don't think represent our interests. And he called on and had representatives from Amhara region, Afar, and Tigray at this event, and called for the kind of reconciliation that is necessary to move the country forward. And subsequent to that, he had, and I had a chance to have a conversation with the Amhara regional president at the time, who wanted more U.S. engagement, not less, which I think is positive, which is important. And subsequent to that, Amhara regional leaders and others have been engaging with. And I think that's what we need to be focusing on, is how do we break this cycle of violence, this cycle of historic grievances, which you feel so deeply about and passionate about, which I respect. I understand that these are really heartfelt and you've seen so much suffering for your community, but the other communities have also felt considerable suffering. So the question for us here today is, how do you move beyond that? And the United States government wants to be supportive of efforts that help the Ethiopian people move forward. And that's what we are focused on trying to do. And so again, appreciate your comments and your perspectives. We take on board what you're saying. We hear you. We hear the other communities as well. And it will help enlighten me as I go forward and have further conversations, and that is with Ethiopian government officials as well as with others to try to figure out what the best way forward is for promoting U.S. interests in Ethiopia. Thank you.
Okay.
Since we don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to ask two people to ask questions. These are on my list. I hope they're on your list. Miriam, this is a list that was given to me. There's Wasi Tasfa and Dr. Ahmedana. These are the two people that I have on my list. So
Yeah, so I have Dr. Ahmedana and
okay, so let the three of them go up there. We have 1 minute. Yeah, if you can, yes, because we have less than 5 minutes. Make your questions just go straight to the question. Go there to Miriam. Three of you, Dr. Ahmedana, can you go there, please? I don't know if he's there, who he is. Go there and ask the question. But just go straight to the question, no context. We have 5 minutes. Over there.
He's not giving you the mic.
So, go ahead, let us speak from there. So,
I'll try to make it as short as I can. Thank you, Ambassador Hammer and Nora. I guess she stepped out. So, I have a number of questions, but I'll just focus on one. And the most important question for me here is that every time we talk, and you and I have had this conversation several times over Zoom and on APAC, when we talk about Western Tigray, what you call Western Tigray, what we call Al-Qaeda, and we talk about Fano's activity in there, we always say, well, Qaeda is Amara, and Fano is where it is at home. So I just wanted to say a little bit about Fano, that historically, Fano is the partisan that fought against fascism in Ethiopia. So we Ethiopians have a special connection to what Fano is. So I hope you understand that, because you did say now, ENDF, non-ENDF forces out of Ethiopia, but what not out of Al-Qaeda. But what that non-ENDF forces is Fano, and Fano is at home. So I would like you to understand that. So other than that, so my question to you is, I'm sorry, this was wrong, so I'm just going to cut it short. Okay, straight to the question. So the other point is the term Western Tigray to us means Amara genocide. That's what it equates exactly that word. So every time you say that, that is really hurtful to us. So if you could please refrain from saying that and we are expressing it as Al-Qaeda or something else, but when you go out and say Western Tigray, it comes back to that, to us feeling that this is going to be the genocide of our people. So I ask you that. So my other question, my question is, the U.S., you say you're not involved in the internal affairs, but when we talk about Al-Qaeda and you go to the details of that, that is internal affairs. That is getting involved in internal affairs in Ethiopia. But that internal affair involvement is to the detriment of the Amara people. So what that looks like is that balkanization is being supported by the U.S. Is this a U.S. policy for Africa? Are we looking to have all the great big countries in Africa balkanized? Is this a policy for USA? Okay. And so, okay.
Miriam, the other two questions. We don't have a lot of time.
He's on live.
Please, no clapping, please. And straight to the question, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador, for giving us a listening ear. My name is Yokra Wadman. I'm a retired nurse practitioner. I live in LA County. I was born as an Ethiopian, raised as an Ethiopian. Unfortunately, I was told to find my ethnicity and get into that format. And now I'm a proud Amara. Okay, my question to you is, with the Pretoria Agreement, TPLF supposed to be disarmed before anything else, and in return all the heavy artillery and all kinds of machines. But
I believe the Ethiopian government put a little show showing us a cartoon type of game. Consider that was the artillery that they used to fight with Amhara. But the US had some kind of, the US was there just.
ውድ አድማጮቻችን ስለተከታተላችሁን እናመሰግናለን። ይህንን የመሳሰሉ ፈጣንና አስተማማኝ መረጃ ማግኘት ከፈለጉ ላይክ፣ ሼር፣ ሰብስክራይብ ማድረግ አይርሱ። ፈጣሪ ኢትዮጵያና ልጆቿን ይባርክ። ደህና ይሰንብቱ።